Daniel was awake, though he told himself he wasn't waiting for anything. His apartment was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the distant growl of a motorcycle fading into the night. The city beyond his window flickered in pale orange, streetlights stretching across empty sidewalks like tired guardians. His phone vibrated once on the bedside table. He stared at it for a long moment before reaching over. No one texted him at this hour. Not anymore. Unknown number. Just a link. No message. No explanation. His chest tightened in a way he hadn't felt in months, sharp and immediate, like a bruise pressed without warning. He swallowed. It was probably spam. A mistake. A wrong number. Still his thumb hovered over it. He told himself he would just look at the preview, just confirm it was nothing. He tapped it. The screen shifted, buffering for a second that felt like an entire lifetime. Then the video began. It was dark at first, shaky, as if someone had set a phone down without adjusting it. A lamp flickered on, casting a warm yellow glow over a small kitchen table. And then she walked into the frame. Daniel stopped breathing. Lena. Her hair was shorter than he remembered, brushing just below her chin. She wore the old grey sweater he used to tease her about, the one with sleeves too long for her arms. The sight of it hit him harder than the sight of her face. She looked directly at the camera, then down at her hands. She seemed nervous. "Hi," she said softly. Her voice. He hadn't heard it in almost a year. Not since the hospital room. Not since the machines. Not since the unbearable stillness that followed. "If you're watching this," she continued, "then I guess I finally got the courage to send it." Daniel's heart pounded against his ribs. He leaned forward on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, as if getting physically closer could make this real in a way that made sense. "I asked Maya to send this to you," Lena said. "But only if things went the way we both know they probably will." His throat burned. Maya, her sister. This wasn't old. It couldn't be old. Lena's eyes were tired in a way they hadn't been before, shadows beneath them like fingerprints of sleepless nights. "You're probably angry," she said, attempting a small smile. "Or confused, or both. You always hated surprises." A tear slipped down Daniel's cheek before he realized he was crying. "You left," he whispered to the empty room. "You left." On the screen, Lena inhaled deeply. "I didn't tell you about the diagnosis right away because I was selfish," she said. "I wanted more time where I wasn't a patient, where I was just me, just us." The word diagnosis rang in his ears. He remembered the months before she died, the headaches she brushed off, the sudden exhaustion, the way she'd insisted she was fine, that work was just overwhelming her. He remembered the night she collapsed in the kitchen. "I know you think I lied to you," she said gently, as if she could hear his thoughts across time. "And I did. But not because I didn't trust you. I lied because I couldn't bear to see that look on your face again." He saw it now, reflected in the black edge of his phone screen. Fear, helplessness, a desperation so raw it felt like drowning. "When they told me it was aggressive," Lena continued, "all I could think about was you sitting in that chair beside my bed, pretending to be strong." Daniel pressed his hand to his mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. "I didn't want your last memories of us to be hospital walls and chemo schedules." The video cut briefly, then resumed from a slightly different angle. She must have stopped and started again. "If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it," she said quietly. The simplicity of it broke something inside him. "I need you to listen to me, Daniel, and I need you not to argue, even though I know you're probably already shaking your head. He was. You cannot let this be the thing that defines the rest of your life." He let out a broken laugh. Too late. The months after her funeral had blurred together into grey sameness. He had stopped answering friends, stopped going to the gym they used to visit together. He had taken down their photos, but kept the frames, unable to fill them with anything else. He went to work. He came home. He survived. That was all. "I know you," Lena said, her eyes soft but firm. "You love deeply, which means you hurt deeply. But you also have this ridiculous capacity to rebuild. I've seen you do it." She leaned closer to the camera. "Do you remember the night we met?" Of course he did. The bookstore cafe, the spilled coffee, the way she had laughed instead of getting angry. You told me you were afraid of wasting your life, she said. Afraid of waking up at 50 and realizing you never really lived. Daniel squeezed his eyes shut. I need you to promise me something, she whispered. Promise me you won't shrink your world because I'm not in it. His chest rose and fell unevenly. Fall in love again, she said. He shook his head violently. No. Yes, she insisted gently, as if responding to him. Not because you're replacing me, but because loving someone is the bravest thing you do, and the world needs that from you. Another tear slid down her cheek now. I don't want to be your last chapter. I want to be a beautiful one in the middle of a very long story. Silence filled his apartment, except for the faint sound of his own breathing. There's one more thing, Lena said after a moment. She reached off camera and brought something into view. It was a small wooden box. Daniel's stomach flipped. I left this with Maya, she said. She'll give it to you when you're ready. Not when you're sad. Not when you're lonely. When you're ready. Her fingers traced the edge of the box. Inside is a letter. And something else. Something that belongs to both of us. She smiled through her tears. I love you. More than I was ever able to say properly. More than you'll probably ever understand. Her voice wavered. Thank you for choosing me. Even for a little while. The screen went black. Daniel sat frozen, the darkness of the room closing in around him. For a long time he didn't move. He just stared at his reflection in the dim glass of the phone. The grief was still there, heavy, immovable. But beneath it something else had stirred. Not happiness. Not even hope. Permission. He didn't sleep that night. At dawn, he showered, dressed, and drove across town to Maya's apartment. The sky was streaked with pale pink, the kind Lena used to photograph obsessively. Maya opened the door before he knocked. Her eyes were red. She must have known he would come. You watched it, she said softly. He nodded. Without a word, she stepped aside and let him in. On the coffee table sat the wooden box. It was smaller than he'd imagined, simple, unlocked. His hands trembled as he lifted the lid. Inside was a folded letter and a tiny pair of knitted baby socks. Daniel stared at them, confused. What is this? He whispered. Maya covered her mouth with her hand. She found out 2 weeks before. Maya's voice cracked. Before it got worse. The room tilted. Pregnant. Lena had been pregnant. She didn't tell you because she didn't know if the treatment would... Maya couldn't finish. Daniel sank onto the couch, the socks clutched in his fist. A life, a possibility, a future that had flickered into existence, and then vanished before he even knew it was there. He opened the letter with shaking fingers. Her handwriting filled the page. If you're reading this, then you know about the baby. I didn't tell you because I couldn't. Bear the thought of giving you hope, and then taking it away. I'm so sorry for that. He pressed the paper to his chest. I imagined their eyes, your smile. I imagined you teaching them to ride a bike. I imagined us arguing about names. A sob escaped him. I need you to know something. Even though we didn't get to meet this little soul, they existed. They were real. And they were made from love. The words blurred through his tears. Don't let this be only a tragedy. Let it also be proof that what we had was powerful enough to create life. He read the last line twice. Live in a way that would make our child proud. The world felt unbearably fragile in that moment. And yet, for the first time since she died, Daniel felt something other than emptiness. He felt responsibility, not to grief, but to love. Weeks passed. He began answering calls, meeting friends for coffee, returning to the bookstore cafe where they first met. It hurt, everything hurt, but it was a different kind of pain now. Not the suffocating kind, the stretching kind, the kind that accompanies growth. He started volunteering at a local community center, teaching kids how to draw on Saturday mornings. The first time a little boy ran up to show him a crooked sketch of a house, Daniel felt his chest ache in a way that was almost sweet. One evening, months later, he found himself sitting on a park bench, beside a woman who laughed at his terrible jokes and listened when he spoke about Lena without flinching. Her name was Sarah. He didn't fall in love that night, but he didn't run from the possibility either. Sometimes late at night he still rewatched the video, not to reopen wounds, but to remember. Lena's voice no longer shattered him, it guided him. On the anniversary of her death, Daniel returned to the spot by the river where he had once proposed. He stood there at sunset, the sky burning gold and crimson, and closed his eyes. "I'm trying," he whispered into the wind. The grief was still part of him. It always would be. But it was no longer the only part. He imagined a little child with Lena's eyes somewhere beyond his understanding. Watching, he imagined her smiling. And for the first time, when he walked away from the river, he did not feel like he was leaving her behind. He felt like he was carrying her forward,